ver. Ok, estamos en el Club de Ilustración de Icesi. Vamos a ir en inglés en esta sesión, vamos a ir en inglés, porque tenemos a Derek Stenning desde Vancouver. Entonces nos vamos a ir en esta sesión en inglés. Me van a perdonar ustedes mi inglés, que es un poquito latino y cortado, pero bueno, tenemos a Derek desde su estudio en Vancouver, desde su casa en Vancouver. Derek es un ilustrador reconocido, y voy a cambiar ahorita a inglés para atenderlo mejor. I'm switching to English, Derek, now because yes, we were like giving this introduction for our students.
Of course.
At Icesi. So welcome. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us today. We understand the change of time. It's 8:30. No, it's already 9 in Vancouver.
Yeah,
9 a.m.
9 o'clock. Yeah.
9 o'clock. Okay.
I have my coffee.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's noon. It's noon here in Colombia, but the thing is, the advantage is that we're going to have this session online in the Red Académica de Diseño channels. So that's the main idea. So to have more contents, to have the possibility of having this guest from abroad, from other countries.
Sure.
So I contacted you because we are friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because we have like many friends on Facebook. So I saw your work a few years ago, and I love it. I love the way you work. And this session is going to be like for us to ask you about your experience, the way you work, your discipline, maybe the techniques, and how you become an illustrator. How was your development or your history? Yeah, your path. You gotta excuse my vocabulary sometimes is limited, but don't worry.
I told you yesterday, Dario, your English is amazing.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you. So I like to show. We have this screen here, and you have been like working with this. I was looking at this concept about dystopia. I don't know if how do you say that in English? Dystopia.
Dystopia. Yep.
Yeah, yep. Dystopia, and this like spaces and these characters, these very special characters that you have. I'm going to upload one of the images I had here earlier, and let me show you something, or let me show some of your work.
Sure.
I have this one here, for example. These are like personal projects, and well, while I'm in the meantime, I'm going to be showing some of your work. But tell us about your experience, Derek. How are you? How did you become an illustrator?
Well, when I was growing up, I always enjoyed drawing and painting and just kind of pursuing those kind of creative endeavors, I guess, So, always drawing, always painting, got interested in, comic books and role-playing games and all this stuff. And it was always really interested in the visual aspects of those things. And then, yeah, when I was finishing high school, looking out to, what I wanted to do with my life, I knew I wanted to be in a creative industry. I knew I wanted to draw and paint. And then I happened to find animation school that was in Vancouver.
Wow.
So it was close. I grew up in Victoria on Vancouver Island. So Vancouver's relatively close. So, I moved there with some friends, and a good friend of mine who I've known since I was 10. We kind of grew up drawing together. His name's Nigel Corliss. He's also an artist, and I work with him at Next Level Games as well. The two of us moved to Vancouver, and we went to animation school. And, I I've always loved animation. It wasn't necessarily my first choice, but it was, in looking at it, it was an avenue to have a career in a creative industry where basically I could draw pictures all day. And, so, I went to animation school, and that was great. It was an amazing experience, just to be in a small, and I'm sure your students, in illustration can sympathize with this. You're in a small environment with like-minded individuals,
Yes.
And you're learning from each other, while learning from your instructors, and it's just this kind of pressure cooker or melting pot of creativity.
Excellent.
So that was an amazing experience. And then when I finished animation school, I worked in animation in Vancouver briefly, not only for about a year. And then I switched over to video games. Vancouver, whether or not your listeners know, it's a huge hub for animation, video games.
Yes, I was about to ask you about the Vancouver industry, talking about video games and illustration and animation.
Sure.
There's something, this idea that we can find as foreigners. For example, students in Colombia, we always look at Vancouver like this huge possibility of studying animation and studying video games, or doing this career, especially. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if maybe development not that way, but maybe more illustration, like the field that you are working now. So it is clear that Vancouver is huge.
There's
for that industry.
Definitely. It's big in all those, games, film. People call it Hollywood North, just because there is so much film production there. In addition to the film production, there's all the post-production with, post-production effects and, that kind of stuff as well. It's a hot spot for that kind of.
It was the end of the 90s when you.
This would have been when I finished school. It was 99.
Okay.
And then I worked in animation for about a year, and then in 2000 I went and switched to games. I moved to Iceland, to Reykjavik. A friend of mine who I went to art school with was Icelandic, and he went back to Iceland after school and got a job at a game company there. So he called me one day and said, "Hey, do you want to come to Iceland and work on a video game?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so me and another friend moved out there. So that was my introduction into games, was working over there.
What is the difference between, let's say, the animation industry and the video games industry?
At that time, Dario, it was, for me anyways, as a production person, and it may be different now. I've been out of animation for so long, but when I was working in animation, it was very much like a factory kind of setting where, one person would, design the characters, another person would do, the turnarounds for those characters, another person would color the characters. So it was very cookie cutter. And then when I moved into, and that may have just been the studio I was working at, but when I moved into games, there was just a lot more freedom, and a lot more, your work was a lot broader. As I moved into video games as a concept artist, instead of just doing that one little segment, and when I was working in animation, I was also, the lowest man on the pole. So I was like cleaning up other people's drawings and doing turnarounds of other people's designs and that kind of stuff. When I moved to games, it was suddenly, not only are you designing characters, but then you're designing environments, and you're doing mood paintings, and you're doing, other graphic design or illustration work. So it was just a lot broader, and that was partly because the companies were smaller, so you had to wear more hats, so to speak.
Yes. But that was the reason I made the question, because here in Colombia, as you say, we have to wear many hats. Yeah. Because industry here is small, so
Sure.
maybe one guy has to do a lot of things. So when you say and you do this comparison between Iceland and Vancouver, it is very good because you mentioned all the stages of animation, and knowing that you began with that career. For our students, sometimes it's hard to understand all the process of animation. I
Sure.
mean, the key line or the in-betweeners or the keyframes, sorry, and the coloring part or the art direction, for example. But as you say, you went to the video game and you had to do all of that at the same time, kind of.
Basically, yeah. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, when that first job I had in Iceland, I was also doing some like 3D modeling as well as doing some concept stuff. And then that ended. That company fell apart, and I moved back to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And but when I came back, I was like, looking at those two experiences of animation versus games, I was like, I want to stay in video games. And so I got a job at another kind of medium-sized company in Vancouver called Black Box Games, and I was doing concept art and graphic design, and it was, and the industry was, I mean, this is 20 years ago, so it was a lot younger. It was It was also growing extremely fast. So the other benefit was, comparing, video games to animation was, in video games, they just had way more money. So, the salaries were better, the compensation packages with benefits and all that stuff was way better, bonuses, all this stuff. So, for me, it kind of hit everything. The work was more creative. The work was more fun. You're getting paid better. And, so it was like, oh, this is great, So yeah, that was kind of.
We have this idea here. Well, most of the people has this idea of about design and about illustration and animation. Most of the parents, I don't know if it happens also in Canada. Well, I don't think so because you have a big industry about it. But here we have these troubles of being a parent that sometimes they feel concerned when a son tells them that he's looking for this path. What do you think about it?
Sure. I mean, when you say, "Oh, I want to be an artist," everyone says, they think of a starving artist, someone who is living in a shack somewhere, and can only afford what's that joke with what's his name, Picasso, when he was in his blue period, and people like, well, that's the only color he could afford. He could only afford blue paint. But no, I know what you're saying, Dario. I mean, again, the situation in Vancouver in terms of it being like a big industry, I mean, that's really only been recognized probably in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, it always was relatively, like, again, I grew up in Victoria, which is, a much smaller city on an island, just south of Vancouver. So again, when I was growing up and I was like, I want to be an artist, my parents, because I didn't come from a family with any, artists or anything like that. So it was a completely foreign idea to them. And, at the end of the day, they were supportive of it. But, I remember, my dad being like, that's fine for like a hobby, but you should get a real job.
A real job, yes.
Or get schooling for a real job, so you have something to fall back on when your art career fails. But it's so I understand what you're saying. I mean, nowadays there's a lot more visibility on the industry. There's a lot more. I mean, again, just with the internet, right? Like you see, go on some of these social platforms like ArtStation, and you see that there's like hundreds of thousands of people on that thing, they're all, a lot of them are working in the industry. I mean, it's a huge industry, and there's just a lot more visibility on it nowadays. So, I think people are a lot more willing to recognize it. And it definitely up here, like you say in Colombia, that because the industry is much smaller, that it doesn't have that recognition. But I mean, I can only say that, for me, kind of ignoring everything I heard growing up and just going for it was kind of the best thing I ever did. Because, getting up every day and, even if it's on a project that I'm not, super excited about, if you're getting up every day and you're actually excited to go to work because you're going to be drawing and you're going to be painting and you're working with other creative people, like that is such a, that makes your life so much better.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how difficult it must be to get up every day and go to a job that you don't like, even if you're getting paid a lot of money. Like, it's just, I couldn't do it, like I feel blessed to be able to get up every day and work with, not only other creative individuals, but a lot of my friends, a lot of people I went to art school with, and a lot of friends even that I, grew up with, I work with every day. So it's I'm very lucky. Let's just say that.
Yes. And we are watching one of your works, excellent work. You were talking about the ArtStation as this platform to show your work. Now that you're in the business, I mean, from that long, you think that ArtStation is like the best platform to show work for the industry today?
I mean, to be honest, to kind of piggyback on what we were talking about earlier, Dario, I'm not the most socially network connected person, so I can't say whether or not it's the best. It's definitely the one that I use.
Okay.
There may be other platforms out there that are better depending on what criteria you're looking at. But for me, I find it's, I guess it started like what ArtStation started about 5 years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago. Something like that. I remember when I, 5 or 6 years ago, I used to be on this other one called CG Hub, which was, another large platform. And then it suddenly died. I don't know what happened to it, Dario. It just suddenly went offline one day. And then a lot of people that I had connected with on CG Hub said, there's this new platform, ArtStation.
They went to ArtStation, okay.
So, we're all going over there. You should come with us. And so I started a page over there. And I really like it. I mean, it's great for, it has a chat thing. You can communicate with other artists. They see your work. They also have like a whole, and I don't really use it, but they do have like a whole marketplace. So you can create your own tutorials or create your own brush sets or assets, and even art prints and stuff that you can sell. I sell prints of my work, but I do it off my own website just because I like it being a little more personal. Like people that buy my prints, they're actually getting them from me. I'm actually signing each one and giving them documents to say that they're actually from me. So I prefer doing it that way. But I think a lot of people have a lot of success selling stuff through ArtStation. But yeah, to answer your question, it's the one that I use, and I really like it.
Okay, good. I was watching your work. I told you before the live broadcast from many months ago, I think 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I think it's so good. It's so exquisite because I suppose that, well, we are from the 70s. We were born in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
We are from different countries, but I suppose that maybe we have the same, ¿cómo se dice? Like taste or likes about images.
Yeah.
For example, I really love comic books. I like fantasy art since I was a very little guy.
Nice.
Maybe you had more information about it being in Vancouver. But I mean, your sources, your inspiration. Where your inspiration is coming, or how it
Well,
works?
yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I do, a lot of my inspirations are, the same ones I had when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and again, like you said, we were born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s and 90s. So a lot of my, a lot of stuff that I still look to for inspiration comes from there. Like I love, well, I guess some of this is even predating that, but if I look at my major influences, I'd say artists like, I like a lot of anime artists, Hayao Miyazaki from Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
I just his aesthetic I really like. Otomo, who did Akira.
Akira, see.
Love that. Other artists would be Frank Frazetta.
Frazetta, excellent, yes.
Yeah, I just like his work. It's kind of abstract and it just exudes like emotion. And
Moebius, you like Moebius? Have you heard about Moebius?
No.
I'm going to send his work is from France.
Oh yeah.
France, so it's great. But I thought at the beginning when I saw your work, I thought you were Russian. Because all these astronauts,
suits and yeah. I mean that series is, and that's what most people know me is from my personal work, which is that EK series. And a lot of that stuff, I mean, I don't know where it comes from. It's just, it's the stuff that naturally just kind of shows up in my head. And it started as a personal project that was kind of a reaction to all of my commercial work that I do, because my day job as a concept artist in the games industry, you're always working on, other people's stuff. As a concept artist, you're always usually tied into like, the narrative and the story and the game design. And so it's not a bad thing, but it's a pretty tight box that you're always creating in. And there's so many different factors to it. So this series, I started doing it just as kind of a release from all of that, and just creating, the images I saw in my head without getting tied up on story, narrative, characters, any sort of, narrative design, so to speak. So I started doing it and it just kind of snowballed and I just felt compelled to keep doing it. And so I did. And it's been an interesting journey in the sense of starting it and then other people getting interested in it. I started selling some prints and then it got licensed for, some magazine covers and book covers and an album cover and then snowboards. And then I did an art book and then a company wanted to do model kits based on it. So we did that. And then I have a few other projects going with it that I'm not going to announce yet, but it's just this thing that kind of kept going. But the key thing was, Dario, was that it, I'd been working as a production artist in games for 10 years and I was just kind of burnt out, so getting back to doing my own work that was, just more free form and what I wanted to do kind of rejuvenated me creatively, like it just kind of lit the fire under me again. That was kind of the first series did that. And then after I finished the art book, I was going to kind of move on to other things, but then, life got really busy and I had some other crazy stuff go on in the last couple of years that kind of pulled me away from doing any of my own stuff. But I always in a spare moment, I'd do some sketching or start a drawing. And it was, again, in the same kind of series. So now that, my life's kind of calmed down a little bit, I'm kind of going back and kind of trying to finishing off all those pieces.
Okay.
So it's kind of a second wave of this personal series. So it's yeah, and it, like it did before, it's kind of rejuvenating me again. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
But it was after the 40s.
What's that?
After the 40s. After your 40s.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I turned 40 in 2015. So yeah, it's yeah.
Yes. Yes.
A second life, Dario.
Yes, I took that decision also. I used to be like a full-time teacher in a university.
Okay.
And I decided, no, I had to stop this. And I went back to my illustration projects. Now I have personal projects. I was telling the other guest this morning about the look or this search for the style, for their own style.
Mm.
It's clear that you have, I suppose, what was your journey looking or finding your own style?
That's a really difficult question, Dario, because it's when way back when I was in art school, and I think this is true for a lot of people, like whatever influences hit you at a young age affect your aesthetic outlook, or your if you are an artist, I think that really affects the work that you're creating. So even when I was in art school, whenever I would draw something, everyone would always say, well, that's one of Derek's drawings, right? They could just, I already had like kind of a very distinct style in comparison to others. I mean, and I think everyone does, but for whatever reason, mine was maybe a little more recognizable. So I just kind of kept doing that, and when I say it's a hard question to answer, because I've never really sat down and said, I've got to create my own style and I'm going to, pull this from there and do this. And so it's not something I've done consciously. It's just something that's evolved.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I just kind of do what feels right. And especially in my personal work, which is all the work you're showing, that's just me doing my own thing, because, and I don't really think about it too much. I don't sit down and try and create something that looks like something else. I just do what I'm doing, Now that being said, I do, again, as my day job as a concept artist, I work for Next Level Games. They basically work on Nintendo projects only. So whatever projects they're working on, I have to kind of chameleon into that style. So I do, in my day job, I have to work in different styles and have to work in different, under different design criteria. So, I have built up an ability to work in different styles, but all the stuff that you see here that is quote unquote my style, as that's just what comes out of me naturally.
Okay. I understand. So see, you made that very, very clear, and it is so good to look at your job. Talking about techniques, Derek, you work all digitally, or you mix it with painting, or what do you use for your work?
I mean, a lot of my work starts as drawings, whether that is, it used to be a lot more that I would draw everything out on paper.
Yeah.
And then, snap a picture of it or scan it and then bring it into Photoshop and paint on top of it or underneath it, the drawing. And of course, again, like you said, given our ages, when I was in art school and working younger, it was all traditional media. So I grew up drawing, and a bit of painting. I used to do a fair bit of airbrushing, those kind of things. And then right when I was entering into the animation field, it was right at the cusp where they were moving away from traditional production into digital production. So it was kind of an interesting time to see that transition. And again, same with when I moved into games, it was right at that period where, I mean, obviously the input into games in terms of 3D and everything has always been digital, but the design work traditionally was still done traditionally. So yeah, when I started in the games industry, I was still doing like a lot of drawing, a lot of pencil and pen on paper stuff, and then doing digital painting as well. But nowadays I'm basically all digital, like my workspace here is, it's a Cintiq and an iMac.
You don't have brushes, you don't have paints, you don't have
not anymore. Not anymore, Dario. I mean, I used to, again, and like I said, a lot of my work used to start with just pencil on paper, but even that is getting less frequent, as I'm.
But you still keep your sketchbooks, I suppose.
Even that's sliding, Dario.
Okay.
Like it's weird, to go from, over the course of how many years going from traditional
to digital.
To digital, but yeah, I mean, occasionally I'll still use pencil and paper, but.
Okay, and talking about software, the main tool you use is Photoshop.
Yeah, my main painting tool and drawing tool is Photoshop. I do occasionally use like some 3D, like if I'm doing like some sort of complex environment.
With Maya or?
Yeah, I mean, it could be Maya, or I use Maya. I've used Max and Blender. So
Blender is good. I have been like trying this new ways of building with Blender, and it's
sure. Yeah, no, it is. It's good. Like it's like, having used Max and Maya, and then trying out Blender, it's great. And working when I'm working at home and stuff, it's because I am on a Mac.
Okay.
So, Blender is basically what I use most because I don't think there is a Mac version of Max, and I don't have a Mac version of Maya. So yeah, but no, Blender's great. You can do a lot with it. It's and again, I have friends that are a lot more into 3D than me, and the stuff they do in Blender is incredible.
But do you render the final images in Blender or in Maya and then go into Photoshop, or you just like build like wireframes and then pass it to Photoshop?
Yeah, I do a very rough block out in Blender and then just export an image, bring it into Photoshop, and basically use it as a guide for painting. It's just I find, yeah, and again, in a work, like as a concept artist in games, sometimes, a 3D artist will pass you or the game designer will pass you a very rough geometry, which is just a block in basically of a level or something like that. I'll open it up in Blender and then, find my camera angle, export just a PNG or whatever, bring it into Photoshop, and then just paint on top of it. So it gets used a lot more in the game kind of production stuff, especially doing, a lot of the level design and environment design. You will get a lot of blockouts that are just straight from the game designers. So they're not worried about the aesthetics of things. They're trying to make a fun environment to play the game in. So you'll just get this kind of rough blockout, and then it's up to me or one of the other concept artists to bring it into the style of the game and make it look pretty. And so
Okay, what's the difference? You mentioned you are like a production artist.
Yeah.
What's the difference between production artist and concept artist?
Well, I use those terms interchangeably. So a production artist would just be an artist working on any sort of game production or production in general. I use it just as a term to distinguish between my, production work and my personal art, because I see them as very, very different things. Like the production art is, all about making something that works and addresses all the design concerns for the client. And my personal art is strictly for my own enjoyment. But so I am a production artist, as would be like a 3D modeler or a texture artist or that kind of thing. But so I'm a production artist, and my role in that is usually as a concept artist. So, the person that, and as a concept artist too, you got, all the different segments in there as well, because it's, concept art encompasses, level design or environment design, character design. It could be, just mood paintings or early style exploration. And again, that's one of the great things about the job, is that it's so varied. Like one day you're doing environments, another day you're doing some character stuff. Then
so it's flexible, and who takes the decision of sending you for one or another task?
That would be my art director.
The art director.
Yeah.
But today you can be an art director.
Sorry, what's that?
Today, if you would like to be an art director,
I wouldn't.
I would. Why not?
No, sorry, I shouldn't say that offhand. I have done art direction in the past.
Okay.
And my biggest problem with art direction, and it depends on how that role is defined, but in most of the projects that I've worked on, Dario, an art director becomes a manager, right? He is someone who is like my art director at Next Level Games, Barrett, who's a friend. I went to art school with him. We were in the same class. He's been a friend of mine for 20 years. Great guy, amazing artist. But his role as an art director, he's in meetings all day, right? And he's in, he's reviewing other people's art. And so my experience as an art director has been similar to that, where you're no longer drawing and painting, right? And I got into this industry because I want to draw and paint all day.
Yes.
Not be in meetings and just managing people, right? Now, that being said, there are, different companies define art director or art, differently, right? So, in some scenarios or some productions, an art director might be, the grand visionary who sits in the corner just spitting out, drawings and paintings, and then it gets handed to someone who, actually facilitates the production of it. But in my experience, and then the companies that I've worked at, an art director is
like a manager.
Yeah, they're managing, right? And they do a lot less drawing and painting than I would like to do.
Okay, but it's so valid and so I don't know if in English is pertinent or pertinente. Okay, but what you're saying is very, very important, because sometimes it happens also in design. Sometimes you like to be you want to have your own studio, and you have to be in charge of accounting or
sure
everything different from design. So at the end, you don't design anymore, and that's what you love. So you have to put it in the scale. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like and those are the considerations you make, right? Like, obviously, as an art director, there's a lot of pros to that job as well, in the sense that you are working creatively at a very high level. You are sculpting the entire look of a project, and in that sense, it's rewarding on a creative level. Obviously, also there's a lot more responsibilities, and commensurate with that, obviously the pay scale is higher as well. As an art director, you get paid more. But for me, it's all about the day-to-day living. And
talking about the money. Sorry, talking about the money. I think it's so important. How much money could earn an art director for in a year? Usually the standard. What can you tell us about it?
I actually don't know, Dario. I don't know what the standard would be. If I had to guess, at a medium to small size studio, you're probably looking at anywhere from 120 to 150,000
a year.
A year. I'm sure on big productions it goes a lot higher than that. And obviously, when you're talking movies and that kind of stuff, it's probably.
But it seems that you can be like stay cool with that salary, I suppose.
Oh yeah, you could live comfortably off that for sure.
Very good. So,
for me, it's yeah. If I was making $150,000 or $175,000 a year, but I didn't like going to work every day.
Well,
couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't. It just it would. For me, I'm happy when I'm drawing and painting.
Yes. In this case, for example, we were talking with this other guest, and she lives in Germany.
Yeah,
she lives in Germany, and we were discussing about the cost of an illustration, etc.
Sure.
But being in Vancouver, you can live from a concept artist career in a good way, I suppose. I see.
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, Vancouver is like an extremely expensive city. Like for Canadian standards,
okay,
it's like the most well, I think it kind of switches between that and parts of Toronto, but like Vancouver is like it's ridiculously expensive. Real estate is very expensive.
Would it be similar to New York? Maybe. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, it depends, I think, on what part you're looking at, But the other consideration too is that, when you're looking at the cost, it's also, what average salaries are, right? So I think, salaries and whatnot in New York in general are probably higher than they are in Vancouver.
Okay.
And then of course you're talking cost of living, right? Like obviously in the States, the taxes are less than they are in Canada. Just because we have higher taxes in Canada because we have more robust
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Important.
So it depends, right? And it also depends where you're living. Like, a lot of people in Vancouver, are commuting from the suburbs, right? Where, if you're living right in the city, it's expensive, So I said, in terms of living off a concept artist salary, it can certainly be done. But yeah, I guess it also depends on your style of living. Oh, did I lose you? Oh, where are you? No, we lost Dario. No. There we go. Can you hear me, Dario? No. He was back for a second. What's that? No, they lost the internet. We're trying to sort it out. Shouldn't be long, I hope. I got to take this package in. I'm supposed to mail it yesterday.
You want to drive down there and get a coffee or go for a walk?
Sure.
I have to buy stamps anyway.
Look, I'm the only one on the show here. I don't know if this is actually still broadcasting.
Volví.
Dario, how you doing?
I'm back.
Awesome.
It was like a 2 minutes, no, like 5 minutes, but under the water. Okay. We were.
I was just going to take over the show and just.
Okay, but Angela took the show.
What's that?
Angela took the show, no?
Yeah. If I was doing it by myself, I don't know.
Okay. Sorry for the.
I don't think anyone would tune into that.
Sorry for the inconvenience. Well, sometimes it happens
Of course.
Oh yeah, of course. So we were talking. We are already about to finish, but we were talking about the industry. We were talking about Vancouver conditions for living and expenses and comparison to the industry of video games. And I think it works very good.
Again, it's I mean, Vancouver, in terms of costs and stuff, it's its own little microcosm, and it's very expensive. And I don't think that, again, I'm pretty disconnected from it. I actually, I work remotely from Victoria right now. But, and Victoria is it's not as expensive. I prefer it. It's a sleepier city. It's a lot quieter and slower. But yeah, I'm not sure if industry salary versus Vancouver prices are that great. It's again, most of the people I work with all live in Vancouver and they do fine. But I've heard that cost of living and salary comparisons elsewhere are better.
Okay.
Now, I mean, the trade-off in Vancouver is that if there's so much work, you're always going to be working if you're decent at your job, right? Like there's no, there are places where, there's just not a lot of opportunity, right? In Vancouver, there is, right? But yeah, it could probably be better in terms of cost versus payment. But
okay.
Yeah, that's my general feeling, Dario.
Okay, good, great. And to finish the session, talk or tell us about the times of production. I mean,
Sure.
how many time does a video game or a small video game or a regular video game takes in productions?
Like in my experience, like your kind of average product. Again, working at Next Level Games, we work largely on Nintendo products.
Okay.
And I'm contractually not allowed to talk about them too much, but Nintendo is generally more concerned with quality and putting out good products versus meeting like shareholder quarterly assessment. So we have to get this game out for Q this, Q that. They're much more concerned with like getting a good product out. So maybe it takes a little longer, but the last project I worked on at Next Level, Luigi's Mansion 3, like that, the studio probably worked on it for about 5 years.
Oh, okay. And you are inside the project during those 5 years, or you just like working 3 years during the project, or how does it work?
Again, contractually, I'm not allowed to talk about it too
much.
Okay. No, it's fine, Dario. But it's I wouldn't usually a concept artist is not on the project for the full duration, right? Like usually on any given project, a concept artist is really busy at the beginning, because it's, you have first people on the ground is, the game designer and, the writer and this kind of thing, and a producer, of course. And, they kind of stand up a design, and then that design needs to be visualized. So that's when the concept team comes in. And then as the game starts taking shape, everything needs to be designed. So a concept artist is generally really busy at the beginning and kind of through the project, and then it starts tailing off as the stuff that needs to be designed diminishes, and then you might move on to another aspect of the project or onto a different project while the game is completed. But that can change too. I mean, the interesting thing with a lot of games now is that they do they'll release the game, and then there's additional content that gets released after the fact. So as a concept artist, you might move on to some of that stuff when the main project concept stuff is done. But generally, you won't work on throughout the whole duration, to answer your question.
Okay. Are you listening to? Can you listen to me good? I think I'm still having troubles with the internet.
I hear you fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, your video is a little.
Okay. Well,
the video is a little grainy, but it's. I hear you fine, Dario.
Okay. Well, I think. Well, we are already like finishing the time, and I like to thank you for your time, Derek. And sorry for the inconvenience with the connection.
Don't worry about it. You can edit those out sitting there. No, but
okay.
I appreciate your your interest in my work, and yeah, it's always great talking about this stuff, and awesome to see that you've got this show and stuff going, and yeah, I'll wait to see who else you interview, because I'd love to check it out.
Yes, and we'll try to invite more people in English, so you'll be more,
this is
with more attention.
This is the first English one that you've done.
Yeah,
wow.
This is the first English session. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Has been very interesting, and thank you again for your time. I hope all our students follow your key. There's a question. What an amazing work! Impressive detailing, illustration skills. Congratulations! Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
I appreciate it.
Very good. Let me see if we have. Well, thank you. Well,
Yeah,
we will have more questions in
Yeah.
the online.
Yeah, if there's any questions, just let me know, and
Okay.
I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay, Derek.
Yeah.
Okay, Derek. Okay. So you have your house here in Cali. You have your house in Bogota with Angela, and thank you again. Thank you again. And it was such an honor and pleasure. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Dario.
Okay, Derek. Keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.